All right, we are live on UNLV Biomechanics Facebook page, and we're recording. I'm John Mercer, professor at University of Nevada, Las Vegas in the Department of Kinesiology and Nutrition Sciences. And I'm teaching a class on physiology of endurance performance this semester. And I'll tell you what, one of the biggest ways to be successful in a race is to get to the race healthy. And so a lot of triathletes have to seek out advice and treatment from physical therapists. And I'll tell you, a lot of our students at UNLV, undergrads especially, they're really interested in getting into physical therapy. So I thought I'd reach out to our local PT experts, and I'm starting with Ron Gallagher today. I've known Ron for some time, and he's been not only a real top-notch physical therapist in the area, but also very engaged in triathlon and from youth sports on up to age group athletes. So, hey, Ron, how's it going?
Good, man. I'm super excited to be here. Multiple formats, multiple audiences. So I think this is a really great thing. I'm happy to be a part of it.
Well, thanks, and really appreciate you taking the time. Now, you own Maximum Physical Therapy, Maximum Performance.
Maximum Velocity Physical.
Yep. All right, so tell us how long you've had that, and how'd you get started? How'd you get that business started?
I've been a physical therapist now for 16 years. Started my career in a traditional clinic. Had some unforeseen business things happen, and decided that it was time to do my own thing. At the time, I had been seeing a ton of runners and taking a ton of continuing education, was training quite a bit myself, and just thought, endurance people are the people I want to be around all day, every day. So why not open a place where I can cater to them? And so Maximum Velocity kind of started as a running specialty clinic. My doors have been open now a little over 6 years. So I'm happy to say that I rehab, strength train, coach runners and triathletes, among many other team sport and active people. And it some days doesn't even feel like work.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's always a good sign when you're able to enjoy what you do. So that's awesome. Well, let's, for the benefit of the students, let's talk about where you did your training. So give us a little rundown of where you've done your education.
Well, I was certain I was going to play right field for the Dodgers. When that didn't work out, I thought, I think I want to work with athletes. I'd always been sort of sports oriented. I remember as a teenager going to the batting cage, and one of the first camcorders that you could have, have that little window and play back in the window. I would go and hit in the cage and then go and watch and make some adjustments and go hit in the cage. And, I think my love of biomechanics and movement really began with baseball. And so I did my undergrad here at UNLV. Actually, when I arrived at UNLV, the physical therapy program wasn't even accredited yet. Mm-hmm. The committee had just been assembled to try to find who's gonna lead it. And by the time I got into the PT program at UNLV, I was in the 4th class.
Wow, how about that?
Yeah, if you go back a ways, I was actually in Dr. Merrill Landers, who's the man over there. I was in his very, very first class. So I like to tease him about that. And actually Ted was a lab TA, an undergrad. So
oh, wow. That's
Ted and I go back a long time.
That's great. So you did your undergrad. What degree did you do your undergrad in?
At the time, we had the Bachelor's of Science in Sports Injury Management. Mm-hmm. And you could do the clinical route, or you could do the athletic training route. No. And in hindsight, I should have taken the ATC route. I spent probably 2 semesters in the training room unofficially, and those hours would have counted. At the time, you just had to have a certain amount of hours to sit for the ATC. And nowadays they kind of buttoned up that little loophole for people like me. I think they like having very, straightforward ATC folks.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so bachelor's in science, sports injury management, and then went on to UNLV's Bachelor of Science in Physical, or Master's in Science in Physical Therapy. Was the last class before it became a DPT.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
Some good history here.
Yeah. Yeah. UNLV's changed a ton. And now when I go back, it's like a completely different place.
Yeah.
So it's always exciting to go back and see my alma mater 2 degrees from there. As you can see, my clinic's all Rebel Red.
Yeah.
And I have a standing rule. If you have anything UNR, there's a 20 burpee penalty.
There you go. Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's great. So now, how did you pick PT though? Okay, so I appreciate the baseball connection, but a lot of times I always wonder, people got hurt and then they discovered physical therapy, or what was it?
My semester in the athletic training room was with the football team. My perception of what was happening there was these guys were not all that plugged in on the rehab process.
Mm-hmm.
It was really long, sort of grind out kind of hours. You really have to love being on the field and squirting water in these guys' mouths. And I just couldn't wrap my head around that. And I always tell the techs and interns that come through here, I had the luxury of being broke. I went to work as a technician, physical therapy technician. I had a buddy who was like, man, if athletic training isn't your thing, you should try physical therapy. And I thought, okay, well, I could use a job. Yep. And, I thought if I got a waiter job or bar back or something, that, the money would just capture me. And, what are the chances of staying plugged in? So I work as a tech, and I'll be totally honest. My very, very first shift, my very, very first hour, I said to myself, I want to do this forever.
Wow.
I was absolutely in love with the whole process. It was like all the great things I learned in class with regular people.
Yeah.
And, the process of getting this old lady to walk at her grandson's wedding and, stuff like that, just that made a lot more sense to me than, kissing this football player's ass. And just thought, this is a little bit more my speed. And then over the years, it's kind of morphed. And here I am with racks and rigs, training athletes and rehabbing athletes. And it's been quite a journey. 17 years.
That's
crazy.
Great.
It literally feels like it was yesterday.
Just flew by. Well, a couple things I really like about that story is, one, you kept searching for different things. And, sometimes the way to discover your path is you just got to try different things, and you never know.
Yeah,
and I think that's absolutely a really good message for students is, well, one, if you don't like what you're doing, go try something else.
Absolutely.
Because you
can't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We learn more by our failures than we do by our successes.
Yeah.
And, I think one of the things that college age kids could learn is there's a ton of benefit of seeing somebody you like doing what they're doing and latching on.
Yeah.
I think that's a skill that's not as developed. I think with all the information at our fingertips, you can teach yourself to put together your car if you wanted to. There's a YouTube tutorial for that. So you feel like you have to do it yourself. But I think latching on to mentors and really asking questions and not being afraid to make mistakes, I think that's really the key to finding your own path.
That's great. And that's the other part that I'm hearing that I think is a really good message is when you found what you knew you liked, and then it's easy.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you still had to
totally.
go back to school. You still had a lot of credits to complete. But at that point, that's all just that's just a path to the means of getting to what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was very fortunate. You know, like I said, I was fortunate to be broke, and what that forced me to do is go look for jobs,
Yeah.
and made contacts with people that you know later on ended up on the admissions board,
Yeah.
and you know, having a friend on the admissions board is a really good leg up. And you know, at home not doing anything, you know, I might not make these contacts.
Yep.
So I always say it was such a blessing because I learned what not to do, what to do. I learned, you know, how to be in a clinic, what's the ins and outs of the experience a patient has from billing and office work to the actual care. I just kind of jumped right in and tried to learn everything I possibly could. And I think as a business owner today, that's a really big feather in my cap.
Yeah, that's great. Now, and I love it. You know, you're always learning. I like hearing that.
Oh
So,
man,
and
this
PT is
is
constantly changing.
totally.
So how do you stay current?
You know, I'm fortunate enough that my path has not been quite as family oriented like a lot of people. So I choose to travel, and I choose to go and research and find continuing education from people who are doing amazing things and latch on, you know. University of Virginia, where the speed clinic is, it's a really expensive treadmill, $4 million treadmill, 15 feet long, you know, 6 feet wide, 360 motion capture cameras. They're just really doing amazing research and amazing treatment on people all over the world come to this place. I had the opportunity to go there 4 years in a row and just really go and learn from the people who are doing really great things. So I choose to do that. I use my social media to track good and bad. You know, I want to be able to talk to a CrossFitter about why some of this stuff, some of these CrossFit places are putting is probably not the best education. At the same time, I want to have some research, some continuing education in my background that says that's probably not what we should be doing, but this is what we should be doing. And I found, hopefully I found this balance of continuing education, reading some books on my own, participating in some lit reviews, and social media.
That's great. Well, and I love it because you're seeking out learning opportunities, and often as an undergraduate, you know, students may be thinking, how do I get out of class? Or they get so excited if class gets canceled. And sometimes that's a sign that maybe that's not the right area, because once you find the area that you love, you are seeking out educational opportunities. And that's great to hear.
Yeah. One thing I wish I would have done is kept a log of the things that I went away from. How did I end up in this place doing the things that I'm doing? It's because I have this big body of knowledge that I whittled down to these little bits and pieces, and what I believe is the best thing about this and the best thing about that and the best thing about this other thing, and discarded some information. I'd love to be able to talk to people about why I discarded things maybe 10 years ago, maybe, you know, and those are learning opportunities that I just was so full speed ahead that I didn't necessarily keep track of. So I always joke and say, I forgot more things than you know, so yeah.
That I love that, because one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what would you go back and tell your younger self, knowing where you are now, you know, years beyond and deep into this business?
It's kind of funny. I kind of think of it like a flow chart, you know. You have your bachelor's degree, and that leads you to your PT, and then you get your first job. And I really believe that your first job is the most important job you take. You know, are you going to choose a place where you get mentored and you become a master clinician? Or are you just going to go and make money? You know, no judgment either way, but like, what kind of clinician do you want to be? And I just wish I would have mapped that out a little better, and had things that I decided to move away from, have a landmark place where I say, this was removed because, whatever.
No.
And, have this roadmap. And now, some of the time I kind of feel like I'm off in left field doing my own thing, because I don't accept insurance, and I, don't participate in a normal referral network. All of my referrals are word of mouth. I would love to be able to sit down and say, this is how my path has maneuvered, and this is why I'm doing things the way that I'm doing them. And that might help me with my social media or how I educate the public, because I feel like everybody wants to put on their shingle that they treat athletes. We do sports rehab. Well, if you don't spend all day, every day with sports, you're not providing sports care. If bread and butter is, 20, 25 Medicare patients a day, and you have 5 athletes a day, I'm sorry, but you don't specialize in athletes. I have maybe 1 or 2 people who are not athletic in the clinic in a clinical day, and everybody else is athletic. I feel like that's the specialty. And to be able to use that information of what I discarded as a way of marketing, or as a way of mentoring a student who comes in. I just hired a new grad, so I'm trying to impart as much knowledge on him as I possibly can. And I would love to have, well, yeah, I was doing that 10 years ago, but why did I discard that?
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, now it's your own business, so a lot of times our degree programs don't incorporate business training. So where did you get that?
We'll do none.
And if you had to go back, how much sooner would you tell your younger self to pick up on the business part?
Whew, man, that's a good question. When I was in PT school, having a creative brain wasn't really fostered. The American Physical Therapy Association is answering to CAPTE. CAPTE is trying to get you Medicare prepared. Really don't want free thinkers. And if, I had the seed placed a lot sooner, that I could actually have a passionate job. I could actually work in a place where, I put red paint on the walls and listen to, Wu-Tang Clan my day or whatever, that, that's an option.
Yeah.
So, having some business sense would have really, really helped. It was straight, how do you not hurt somebody?
Yeah.
And, preparing you for CAPTE. I mean, honestly, it's a business. Everything's a business. The business of physical therapy school is preparing people to pass their exam. Judged by how many people pass their exam. What percentage of people pass on their first attempt? That's the number one question these PT students are asking. Why would you spend this much time, this much money getting trained if their students are not passing the exam? So, that's the focus of the school, to generate as much test knowledge as they possibly can, but not necessarily teach you how to treat a patient, how to make a living, how to manage a clinic. What do you do about doctors and chiros, and how do you manage yourself within a community? And, that's sort of on the job, trial and error. Jumping in with 2 feet and hoping you land, and you make some mistakes, but you grow and you learn, and you try not to do that again. And I'm happy to say that I think the number is 5% of small businesses don't make it 5 years, and another 5% of those 5% don't make it another 5 years.
Wow.
So,
yeah, you've done it.
That's kind of a daunting statistic, and to have a specialty medical practice, small business, that's just sort of a novelty, newer kind of thing for people.
No, that's great. And I'll tell you, even in kinesiology, right now I'm acting chair of the department. I've been with kinesiology now for, about 20 years as well. And we are very focused on, teaching content, knowledge, and then we do miss in kinesiology preparing students to be working in the fitness industry and that management part. And that's something that somehow we've got to figure out how to do that, because our degrees are already packed with content credit. So
Yeah.
so but I think that's neat to, as a physical therapist who started his own business, I think that's good for students to understand that there's a whole business aspect that they skill sets that they got to pick up in order to
Yeah.
be successful. Because it's
Absolutely.
easy. You got to have the content, but you also need to be able to pay the bills and do the accounting and hire people,
Totally.
hire good people. So,
Yeah.
so you've been able to do that. So that's great. All right, let's switch gears.
Okay.
Let's talk triathlon.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So how did you transition? Maybe it's just a natural transition, because I know you started off as a running expert. How did you transition into triathlon? What made that happen?
I was having this problem with my calf. And I was like, I went to school, I spent all this money. Why can't I help myself with this calf? So I thought, well, I'm going to find some running specialty continuing education.
Mm-hmm.
And in my research, I found running medicine, which is a continuing education course that comes around every year. They were actually doing an entire weekend course on triathlon. And I was like, that's amazing. It was like a full day of running, a full day of cycling, a full day of swimming. And it was a 3-day course. And I was like, man, this is perfect. And when I went there, my head exploded with how much these guys were trained in this really, really specific way to train athletes. And I thought, man, my training doesn't capture any of this. So I actually went back with just that course, a completely different clinician. And all the references and all the books that they had, I just went on this big time rant on, I want to learn what these guys are teaching. This is a high level orthopedics. Mm-hmm. And really learning how to take care of my own calf helped me become better at treating runners. Taught me how to be an expert at gait evaluation, what's important in gait evaluation, and started developing a reputation among runners, and developed a following. And eventually I was like, I need to step my running game up. And I see that poster behind you, that Silverman. I was at the Silverman, I think it was 2008, when the winds were so high and they were losing boats. And I remember standing there watching the swimmers enter the water. And I just remember thinking, these are amazing. These are amazing people. Some of them are afraid, others don't care. Mm-hmm. All of them are going to get in the water. And when I was a kid, the Wild World of Sports used to show Kona. And I just remember thinking to myself, that's an amazing thing for them to do. I hit home runs, I get rebounds, I'm going to run 10 feet and smash somebody. I'm a lineman. I'm not an endurance guy. And I was just super curious. And it always had been in the back of my head. And then when I saw those people get in the water at Silverman, I was like, I'm going to do this next year. Yeah. And so I started training the week after that. I was already doing a fair amount of running. I had, some of this foundational knowledge, just really, really started to educate myself. The following year, I did a sprint, 2 Olympics, and then the Silverman with my first half iron. And that was before we shortened it up and made it easier for everybody. Yeah. When it was the hardest triathlon in North America.
Yeah, up to 3 Sisters.
I was hooked, absolutely hooked. I was a bit of a fish out of water, but I was absolutely hooked. I just think there's something amazing about the X's and O's of executing a run plan, executing a swim plan, executing a bike plan. How do all those plans come together? How does nutrition affect all of those things? And it was like, for somebody who just loves the physiology of it and the orthopedics of it, it was like a kid in a candy store. That's and awesome. There's just so many things you can learn, so many things you can improve on. And I just thought, man, this is the greatest thing.
That's so cool. And so I know not only as a physical therapist, not only do you treat injured people, but you work with healthy athletes and coach them. You want to talk about your coaching, and I really want to talk about your youth program that you started.
So I had started developing a reputation around as being able to help injured runners. Mm-hmm. And I started to get a couple of runners from UNLV, distance, track, cross country. And when Kadivus Robinson came to UNLV, if people aren't familiar, he's a two-time Olympian, 800-meter champion. He's a cross country and assistant track coach at Ohio State at the moment. Really good friend of mine. One of my lifetime highlights will be right on the track when he qualified for his second Olympics. Mm. He said, seems like you're familiar with some of our athletes, and it seems like you're really, really good at making sure these people are not getting injured. Why don't you come and be an assistant coach? So I was an assistant coach at UNLV, cross country and distance track. And, you know, I thought I was going to get in there and I was going to see this really high level X's and O's, like workouts, you know, what's going to make a fast 800-meter runner, what's going to make a fast 10K runner. And the X's and O's honestly don't matter a whole lot. You know, what matters is how does this person manage their whole day, and how does a hard running session fit into a whole day? And I started to put some things together. You know, these athletes have a position coach, they have a head coach, they have a nutritionist, they have athletic trainers, they have a strength coach, they have this whole multitude of people. And I thought, man, this is a service that age groupers don't have. Mm-hmm. I can provide a bunch of these components. So I started to learn more about coaching, got some coaching certifications, got some triathlon coaching certifications, and just started trying to put together, what is going to make this person perform at their optimum. And if they come injured, I want to get them healthy. From healthy, I want to get them performing at their best. If they come maybe not performing at their best, a classic is, I've been running this 2:10 half marathon for 5 times in a row and I can't seem to get any faster. I love being able to dismantle how they're training, what they're doing with their biomechanics, provide some programming that changes that, and then put their body in a position to do that. And, when they run a 2:01, 2:03 or something, and they're just on cloud 9, to me, that's like the best thing in the world. Mm-hmm. Stand behind them and watch them go and perform at their best. It's just awesome.
That's great.
The youth program really started as a necessity. The NCAA announced that they were going to offer some scholarships for female athletes. And I thought, man, I go to every single, I go to every single event. I know all the people there. Why don't I know if there's any kids who are recruitable? That's a problem. Like, this is an option for kids that they don't even know. And at the same time, in my practice, I'm treating a ton of injured athletes and realizing that single sport specialization happening sooner in a young athlete's career is really killing these athletes. So, I would just remember talking to these swimmers and, you can't swim 6 days a week and hope that you don't develop any shoulder pain. So what if we take some of these toasty swimmers who, lost their love for being in the pool 6 days a week, teach them how to run, teach them how to bike, give them some strength training, and then all of a sudden these are flourishing kids, super happy to take on triathlon. And then we started really putting things together. The Youth Cup, the USA Triathlon Youth Cup Series is a vehicle within the Olympic pipeline to prepare these kids to get to college. Mm-hmm. And USA Triathlon is using that pipeline to identify Olympic caliber athletes. So I thought, man, what a fun project that would be. And all of a sudden, at one point I had something like 19 kids on this team. Right. And eventually it kind of got whittled down to the ones who really wanted to race in college, really, really wanted to be elite. and we ended up what they call a high performance team. There's this really, really long process of proving to USA Triathlon that you could actually produce an Olympian. Really what it boils down to. You have the rights and the responsibilities of somebody who could potentially produce an athlete who could participate in the Olympic pipeline. So as the only high performance team in Nevada, the only like one of 4 in the West, you know, that was a really fun place to be. We ended up in the last couple years with 4 eligible ladies. And I'm proud to say that 3 of them are gonna race in college. 2 of them already are. In fact, one just got a text message yesterday. She sent me a picture of her whole team on a group ride, and you know, she's in North Carolina. You know, it's such a great feeling to participate in a program that produced some outcomes that weren't available when we started. Yep. And you know, I'm a bummed to say at the moment hyperspeed is not happening. Mostly it's because it just kind of run its course. Mm-hmm. The athletes who are involved are going to college. Yep. And there was nobody really coming up with the need to do that. And I've been approached by a couple of people to maybe take on some youth athletes, but essentially it'll go down as probably one of the greatest things in my career, which is take these kids with absolutely no triathlon experience, mm-hmm. their bodies, develop their mindset, you know, develop the ability to get them to be elite. Yeah. You know, the number 1 18-year-old in the country, the number 3 18-year-old boy in the country, 16, ranked 16th in the country out of 72 teams or something. And, you know, we made some noise, and it was a really, really great project.
Oh, I'll tell you, you look at the alumni of your program and they are really doing fantastic across the board. And I do agree with you. I think something that we're missing here in the Valley is that pipeline for kids to get involved with triathlon. And, yeah. You know, as president of the Las Vegas Tri Club, we always talk about this. It's just a challenge. We need to have that pipeline develop. And so, yeah. Who knows, maybe someone watching this video, maybe they want to try to.
I'm all ears.
Yeah. All ears. That's awesome. All right. So, but I know I'm going to talk a little bit about developing a team, because when I used to go races and your team was showing up, they had a nice culture about it. They warmed up together. They hung out with each other afterwards. How do you develop that team culture?
I love coaching. Like, I love Nick Saban and, you know, Gino Ariema, you know, from UConn. I just think it's amazing that these guys have this process down, you know. And I thought, what would be the triathlon version of that? These kids are racing an individual sport. Their goals are pretty much all individual, but how do we get the best out of them? So what I wanted to do was take my experience from college track and prepare them as if they're going to perform in a college type environment. So, you know, they train together, they lifted weights together, they warm up together. Sometimes we cool down together. And I just thought, you know, especially in the Youth Cup series, where the triathlon is very different from an age group race in that it's draft legal. We have to have a camaraderie and an understanding that we're going to be able to race with each other. Mm-hmm. And we always had a rule that we're always a team until there's a quarter mile to go, and then all bets are off, you know. And I loved track workouts where I can pin them against each other and force them to compete against each other and try to get the most out of them, make it a game, make it fun, and then go over to, you know, so-and-so and say, look, he got you, you know, what do we need to do? And then go over to the other guy and say, hey, look, you know, he almost got you, what do we need to do? And, you know, coach them both up really hard, create some competition, but at the same time, you know, we got to ride together. You know, we want to come out of the water in a place to pack up and be able to trust each other at, 25, 30 mile an hour packs with 50 riders in a pack. We got to be able to trust each other and pull each other to a place where we can get off this bike and run. And if we can help each other through this run, and we can literally pull each other, and then quarter mile to go, all bets are off.
Yep.
And, hopefully we put ourselves in that position. And so I also do a bunch of like Positive Coaching Alliance and stuff like that. And, we traveled all around the country doing some of these youth cup races. And I wanted these to be memories. I wanted the relationships that they develop with each other for them to be really strong. And I just wanted triathlon to be a vehicle. I wanted to go to Washington and have these amazing trails and, do these amazing things and say, look, when you're fit and your life is exercised and you're fit, you can go and do fun things in new places. This is what your fitness can do for you. This is why a lifelong athlete is important. And, we saw the sunrise in Summerlin. We saw the sunrise in Boulder City. We saw the sunrise in Blue Diamond. And I always made it a point, like, look around. I mean, how many people are out here enjoying this sunrise? And we have the fitness and the commitment, the discipline to get up early, take care of our details for the day before, because we have a long ride today. Mm-hmm. And, look at this sunset or look at this sunrise. How beautiful is this sunrise? And now they send me pictures of the sunrise wherever they are.
That's great.
And I just think that's so cool.
Well, I love it because that is the lifestyle. And
totally.
The racing is, fun and enjoyable, but at the end of the day, you've got to enjoy the lifestyle. And if you don't enjoy the lifestyle, you're never going to get to the start line.
Absolutely.
And have your best performance. So
ultimately one of them chose engineering over college triathlon scholarship.
Yep.
Like that's an amazing choice to have to make. Division I triathlete, engineering scholarship.
Yep. Right. And they can always come back to the sport. So
totally. It was an amazing project.
I don't want to dive too much into your secret sauce with the training, but I am curious, even with the adult athletes that you work with and the age groupers, how do you keep track with them? Do you have them wear different wearable tech? Do you use the wearable tech, or is it more of a holistic approach to working with them?
That's a good question. So when I was at UNLV, I ended up assisting two coaches. They were both very different, raised and trained. And one of them was super, super by feel. And the other one was pretty much all data.
Yep.
And I kind of got an appreciation for both. And one of the things I think is, there's going to be a race where your watch dies. There's going to be a race where, your GPS isn't picking up or, whatever. And you have to have that feel. So I kind of go back and forth. And I don't love heart rate stuff. A lot of the things I read and my experience with it is that it's not as precise. Mm-hmm. And, so I kind of go back and forth, but pretty much all GPS watch, some Strava. When I did have, at one point I had a list of 5 to 10 age group triathletes I was training, that I did use Training Peaks. And, Training Peaks, you can get incredibly detailed, and, it just kind of depends on the learner, what they actually want to do. This is your first marathon and you want to survive a marathon. Well, we're probably not going to talk about, lactate threshold. We're probably not going to talk about, some of these parameters and, how much you should rest after this particular workout and, all the scores that they give you and everything. But, I have trained some Boston qualifiers and some of these elite triathletes, these boys are doing a sprint in just about an hour.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Mm-hmm.
That's an incredible time to an age grouper, 1 hour and 1 minute is about where you need to be.
That's awesome. Well, I love it because, you can get overloaded with data, especially today, because even just a simple, GPS watch, you upload
Yeah,
that, it goes to Training Peaks, goes to Garmin Connect, it goes to
yeah,
Strava, and
yeah.
all of a sudden you get all these different metrics and
I
prediction.
have a feeling that Strava is not as healthy as we think. It can be something that you obsess about.
Yeah.
You're worried about who's looking at your workouts, and you hide workouts and you stop your watch, and like what are we actually doing?
Hmm.
We have to be careful with some of those things because they can become humanized.
I love it because going back to where we started this discussion about what your undergrad and graduate programs prepared you for, it probably had nothing to do with the psychological aspect of
Yeah,
working with someone, and
yeah,
even from a rehab perspective. I mean,
yeah,
you got to treat the person. You can't just
absolutely.
monitor. Yeah.
And each athlete is so different, and coaching is such a funny profession. You can be fired for a 15-minute PR, show up to the start line healthy as can be, no injuries for the first time ever, and the person will still fire you.
Yeah.
You just have to be prepared for that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's great. Well, I love it. I love your approach. I love the holistic nature of it, teaching them how to use the data, but then also warning them about not getting obsessed over it because, that's the thing about endurance athletes. They can get a little obsessive about things.
Absolutely. Type A, smart people,
You know?
it can be a bit much.
All right. So let's talk more globally then. What's the advice that you give to triathletes to be successful and to avoid injury? Although I guess you really want them to get injured to come and see you, but
I wouldn't say that.
how do you keep them from getting injured and get to that start line healthy?
I basically break the whole picture down into three parts. Do you have the range of motion and strength? Do you have the biomechanics? And do you have the programming to be successful?
Hmm.
Me, programming is how many miles a week do you run? What tempos do you run? Do you do long runs? Do you do short runs? How many miles a week? Those types of questions are programming. Biomechanics is how do you use your body? And then the range of motion and strength basically is table stuff. Do you have normal hip, knee, foot and ankle range of motion? Do you have the strength to pull off normal biomechanics? And the answer is going to fall into one of those three categories. And your ability to make those things blend is really the art of what we're doing. So, you go and you learn all these really specific facts and figures about what's supposed to happen on this treadmill. And then you come back and say, okay, well, this is the art of it. This is what our brains do. You can't go from 160 beats a minute on your stride frequency to 180 in one session.
Hmm.
How do you develop the ability to do that? And essentially, that's my approach to coaching is first of all, take this person who's injured, identify the holes in those three categories, fill in those holes, and then once they're healthy, build them up to train and pull off programming they couldn't do before. And really what we're trying to do is diversify these people as athletes. If you only swim, bike, or run, you're eventually going to lose the ability to go one direction. We look at these elite marathoners and, they have a very, very short window on how many miles they can do a week. It's not because that's the limit of running. It's because that's that limit person as a general athlete. And if we were able to make that person a better general athlete, they can tolerate the vigors of running a little better. So really it is a holistic approach. I mean, it's not uncommon for me to treat an ankle problem with hip stuff. But essentially having the understanding of normal biomechanics, how to accurately derive information from a gait evaluation, and then how do you execute a rehab program to get them healthy or a strength program to keep them healthy. And essentially that's kind of how I develop these people as athletes and get them to reach their maximum potential.
Oh, I love it. Because you start off as a physical therapist, 17, roughly 20 years ago. And now, I mean, you're talking about in order to be a successful coach or even a successful PT, you've got to have this broad range of knowledge.
Yeah.
You can't just be a good physical therapist.
Yeah. I mean, the orthopedics of running is one thing, but, going to the top strength coach in the country and learning from the top strength coach, going to, have a little experience with the Oregon Project and, talking to these guys at the Oregon Project. These guys are in high level Olympic caliber runners, and, what are they doing? What do they see? And, it's like this ever evolving, never know enough kind of place. And, when you're on the bottom rung, it's so high to climb.
Yeah.
And once you're, a little bit closer to the top, you realize that that's the joy.
Yeah.
The process of continuing to adapt and continuing to grow. And, for me, it's just been a life project that is super rewarding, and it doesn't get old for somebody to come back and reach their goal, and just can never get that high out of my life.
That's awesome. Well, and I think this is great. I love talking with you, but I don't want to take up your whole day, which I probably could, but I want to maybe close on that type of question, because you've done triathlons, you've done running races, and you've crossed that finish line, and you talked about Silverman, which is a great accomplishment. And crossing that finish line is a special feeling. But I want you to sort of maybe compare and contrast your feelings of crossing a finish line as an athlete versus watching one of your athletes cross the finish line.
Oh man, it is so hard. It is so hard to stand on the side and watch these kids race.
Yeah.
I mean, mostly because the bike paces are so fast and the crashes are so bad that, from a safety point of view, you just want your athletes to be safe. But, it's like when it's you know how you're going to react when the lights are on. Lights come on, this is all the things you've been doing for training. But when it's them, they have to do it. It's up to them. When the lights come on, are they going to access all the things that they learn? Are they going to trust their body? Are they going to believe in their training? And, but there is no better feeling than watching one of your athletes come out of the water second at nationals, jump into the lead pack, be with some of the best elite triathletes their age in the country, and, are whipping around this course in the lead pack. Man, it is really, really intense, and it is just so fun to watch. And, it brings tears to my eyes, and it's been a couple years since I've seen him do that. But yeah, it's one thing when it's you, but it's another thing when you plan an entire year for one race, and you train and you train and you train and you train, and we talk about the nutrition and the sleep part, and it's just so many details go into it, and it's just such a great feeling to watch them succeed
and watch it all come together. And
yeah, it's just there's nothing better.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, Ron, it has been great to talk with you. I really appreciate you taking time to talk with me about your where you started and where you are now, and all the different experiences you've had.
Yeah, I'm super happy to do it.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm
an open book. If anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm more than happy to take some emails or volunteers or whatever. I'm all about trying to educate and get more people like me out there, so they can take what I've done and run with it and do better than I ever did. So
that's awesome. Well, thank you. And I will post a link with the video for your business and Maximum Velocity.
I appreciate that.
Make sure that there's
awesome.
a way to get a hold of you. So this is great. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, man.
All right. Have a great day.
All right. I'm gonna